Yes.
You know, it's just you know, commenting on that. You know, I think of Shin Shin Min, and you know, it seems to me that this concept of faith, it's more about discarding all these things that we do have faith in, that we may not even realize we have faith in, one after the other, one continuing. You're realizing delusion after delusion and
Yes.
letting them go.
Yeah,
Very
so,
different from the Christian or the you know, Judeo-Christian idea.
yeah, so Zen is a process of deconstruction. Deconstructing what we think, who we think we are. Basic teaching of anatman, non-self, doesn't mean to get rid of the ego. I would say, Dogen says that too, but it means to see through the ways in which we're caught by this constructed small self that we need to get, you know, to survive adolescence. You know, we all have an ego. How do we not be caught by it? Is more the point of that. So yeah, I may have missed part of your question. No? No? Okay. Stephen?
I agree with you that this is one of the maybe relatively overlooked vesicles. And on the translation issue, it sounds like you've been working with this for a while, because you did the translation that was in an earlier book, and now you're going back to it in your monograph here. How do you feel in that process? Did you see it differently 10 years later?
Well, I see that. So I didn't go back and try and retranslate it. I used the translation of the process I had done a while ago. But looking at it again, of course. No translation is perfect. I agree with what Griff was saying. There's various ways to translate this, and this title particularly we translated in a kind of provocative way, intentionally. But the process of translation is, you know, as the Soto Zen Translation Project is doing at Stanford, with voluminous footnotes, you really need to give all the citations and everything. When I translated Dogen's extensive record, we tried to have lots of footnotes because there are lots of references. So in terms of how this particular vesicle, and looking at it again, I tried to focus on the parts that felt most juicy for me. But there's a whole other section where there's a long playing with, I'll go to the translation, with Xuefeng and Zhuangxia, and then Yuan was later comment about the Buddhas and the past, present, and future abide in flames and turn the great Dharma wheel. There's a whole section of the Open City Gita that talks about this image of Buddhas, not just what I talked about before, this transformative function in this vital process, but also the Buddha sit in flames. And that's, again, another provocative image that you can understand in lots of ways. It's being willing to be in the flames of one's own attachments. There's a line in there that I'll mention that I think is helpful. Xuefeng, great master, who's the one who turned over the rice in the sand in the story before, said this statement: Buddhists in the past, present, and future abide in flames and turn the great Dharma wheel. His student Zhuangxia said, as flames expound Dharma to all Buddhas in the past, present, and future, all Buddhas remain sitting and listen. So this is a point that Dogen also makes in Heikorobu, that it's not that Buddhas are the ones giving the teaching, and then there are the deluded listeners, but that Buddhas also come and listen to the Dharma. So anyway, he turns things around again and again in lots of different ways. So I'm not sure I responded to your question.
Yeah, no, good. Thank you.
But yeah, in terms of what to present in this book, I tried to look at some of the parts of it that seem most provocative and that seem to fit into the theme of questioning and how Zen is about questioning. Other comments or questions, speaking of which, or responses? Yes?
I was also wondering, does this practice also include like traditional Buddhist practices like mantras and mudras, like the hand positions as well? I'm not sure if I'm mixing religions.
No. Well, this is a controversial issue. So, is anybody here an official from Sotoshu? Okay. Well, shikantaza. So, that could be a whole discussion. What is shikantaza? What is shinjin datsuraku, which is a phrase that Dogen used, that Stephen mentioned that Dogen uses much more than shikantaza. But just sitting is just sitting. There's nothing else that you need to do. But just in terms of my own teaching and with my Zen students, I'll say that practically speaking, many people need to have some particular object of meditation to help settle. Just sitting is basically objectless meditation, just to be present with whatever comes up. But I do sometimes recommend mantra and sitting with using mantra while you're sitting, and I do it myself. And for any Zen place that chants the Heart Sutra, it ends with a mantra instruction, and the mantra kate, kate, parakate, parasamkate, bodhisvaha. So I think it's okay if you're doing zazen, even in the Soto context, to use that mantra if it helps you to settle. To
Is
then
that beyond? Okay, I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
yes.
Okay.
So I think whatever helps, practically speaking, including mantra. Well, of course, we do mudra. We do this mudra. We do in meditation this mudra, and walking meditation this mudra. So there's lots of mudras, and in terms of Soto Zen ritual, and Will has written about this. There is a large part of it that comes from Shingon esoteric Japanese ritual, or maybe Tendai esoteric ritual. So, but more fundamentally, for Buddhism in America, I don't think we have to get hung up on this way or that way, or I think we can be grounded in Dogen's teaching, for example, in Soto Zen, and learn from lots of other traditions that are around. This is a really exciting time for history of Buddhism. Buddhism is a global religion for the first time. Maybe in the last 10 or 15 years. It used to be an Asian religion, but it's here it is in Florida. And also all the different forms of Buddhism, Asian representatives of those teaching forms, branches from all the different cultures are around, and they're American disciples, and so why not learn from each other?
So you're saying that it is quite flexible.
Well, some teachers are more flexible than others, and maybe sometimes being flexible is not helpful.
Makes sense.
One more. Yes.
Stanley.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could briefly talk about any parallels that exist between Shikantaza and Vipassana, or Vipassana, however it's pronounced, insight.
Briefly, I think practically speaking, there's a lot of parallels in terms of the actual experience. Sitting, lots of people like to close their eyes. That's one difference, and they're not necessarily as focused on posture as in zazen. There's the difference. As scholars, we study the differences, and those are important in a certain way. But on another level, the heart is what's important, and it's not so different. But to talk about talk about technically about the different meditation approaches, I could go into that, but that's a whole other talk. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be here with eminent Dogen scholars. It seems I'm only one who is not academic, and also who is not a native speaker of English. So please forgive my poor English. I really appreciate all people's hard work to organize this meaningful gathering. I think I was invited because I have been working on translation, but this is not my wish. I mean, I lived in Massachusetts from 1975 to 81. During that time, you know, we tried to establish a small Zen community there in western Massachusetts. And we didn't have so many texts. And one time someone brought a translation of Dogen Zenji's Fukanza Zenki. And when I read that English translation, I didn't believe this was written by Dogen. That was why I tried to make my own translation. That was the first translation work for me. After that, you know, there are so many translations made by many people, and we have almost all writings of Dogen translated into English. I really appreciate, and I'm really happy about that. So I feel now I don't need to translate anymore. So I feel released. Anyway, so I don't need to be here anymore. Well, when I was invited to be a speaker of this gathering, Shotai gave me this flyer of this conference, and when I read the title, "Bringing Dogen Down to Earth," actually this morning Shotai says a Japanese asked a question about this title. That was me. When I read, this "Bringing Dogen Down to Earth," I felt this is strange because it sounds like Dogen is up on the earth and we are down to, up on the air, and we are on the earth. So it seems like we ask Dogen to come down. But I don't think that is true. I believe, Dogen has been already, always sitting on the earth, on the ground. And we are living about 5 to 6 feet above the ground. So we need to go down to earth, not Dogen. That was my kind of question or feeling about when I first read this, "Bringing Dogen Down to Earth."